Stefon Diggs just signed a massive deal to be the Patriots' new wide receiver one. But the last time we saw him, he was getting carted off the field with an ACL tear. So what can we expect from Stefon Diggs? And should you be drafting him for next season? Let's find out. Welcome, football fans, to another edition of IDP Plus. What is up, folks? I am one of your hosts here, the DGen Doc, and more importantly, I am joined by my brother in degeneracy, Mr. Derek Bennett, aka Professor Locks. How we doing tonight, brother?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Glad to be talking a little football with you and a guy that just got a nice 3-year deal.
He did get a nice 3-year deal. That's right. We are going to be talking about Stefon Diggs, who just signed a 3-year, $69 million, $26 million guaranteed to be the New England Patriots wide receiver one for young Drake Maye there. And this is the start of a new series. This is going to be NFL injury deep dives. Look, it's the offseason. So, a player goes down, they get injured, you hear about it really quick, and then you kind of move on. Yep. Now we've got some time to take a little bit of that deeper look. And that's kind of what Derek and I do. So as a brief reintroduction for those that don't know, we are both physical therapists. We have our doctorate in physical therapy. We work with injuries all day, every day. Currently, I am in the U.S. Army, and I'm working with the tactical athletes over there. Derek, tell the people what you are doing currently.
Yeah, I am a professor of exercise science at Muskingum University, and then I own my own practice in the evenings, weekends, whenever people need me, treating mostly athletes and other active people. So big time sports and orthopedic guy.
Perfect. Yeah, look, I mean, hey, probably the last time we just do a brief little who are we? Why do we feel like we can talk this?
Yeah, you put me on the spot there a little bit. I wasn't prepared with my intro.
So we didn't want to name our credentials twice, right? It's humble.
Right. Right.
But no, yeah, look, guys, this is what we do. We love injuries. We love football, getting people back, rehabbing. And so that's kind of where we look at things from a little bit of different lens. So we're taking a little bit of a deep dive. That's going to be kind of what this series is all about. If there's a player on your team, you're wondering, if there's a guy, you're like, hey, should I draft him? Is he coming to my team? Maybe it's Patriots fans. Maybe you're just a football fan that wants to talk football, on March 27th or whatever this is in the middle of the offseason, right? Early offseason. So that's what we're doing. And
it is the offseason, but today's a big day. Opening day for baseball.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Some would say if you're like me and you're just trying to think about football 24/7, then sure. Yeah. MLB. Yeah. Good stuff. I will say, well, now that we're throwing it out, my Gators, my Florida Gators, basketball Sweet 16 tonight against the Crab 5 in Maryland. Got big hopes for them. We'll see. By the time this episode comes out, we'll know if they've made it out of the weekend or not.
That's right.
So let's go Gators and let's go baseball, I guess. All right, man, let's get right into this. We are talking Stefon Diggs and, ACL tear, right?
Yep.
So why don't we explain, and I will let you do the professor work here about what is this ACL and why is it so important in the knee?
Yeah, so the ACL, we have 4 major primary stabilizing ligaments of the knee, the ACL being one of those. It's probably one of the more well-known stabilizing ligaments. Mm-hmm. And it's partially because a lot of high-level athletes do tear their ACLs. And the ACL basically holds the tibia underneath the femur. So the tibia is the long bone of your lower leg, the femur is your upper thigh bone, and basically it holds them together and doesn't allow that tibia to move forward. So I think that's pretty much it.
That's pretty fair. I mean, look, it's one of your primary stabilizers. It's especially important in what we call dynamic stability, which means with movement, right? There are, can you live without an ACL? Yes, you can. Hines Ward famously played in the Super Bowl without one, right?
Yep.
Are you going to be at the same level of function?
Maybe not.
Not as likely, right? If you're younger in your career, younger in age, you are almost always going to get this done preoperatively.
Yep.
There is sometimes this thing called copers, people who can build up other structures in their body. But for the majority of athletes, especially those looking to continue on, they are trying to repair their ACL, which
Exactly.
we have a couple of examples here. So, Professor, take it away.
Yeah, so the one on the left with the two prods kind of sticking into it, that's a bone patellar bone graft. So basically, your patella, your kneecap, they take a piece of bone, and that's why you see that big red box on the kneecap, and they take a piece of your bone off of your tibia. And by doing that, they are able to maintain part of that ligament that connects your kneecap down to your tibia, and now they've just basically created a new ACL. So you can kind of see those screws going into both of the long bones of the leg, and that piece of what used to be the quadriceps ligament now being the new ACL.
Mm-hmm.
On the
Yeah.
right side, this is probably a graft from somewhere else. Graft meaning the new ACL. They've probably taken this from a hamstring, a gracilis muscle, just a different muscle throughout the body, typically hamstrings, and
Yep.
they've basically put buttons on the outside of the tibia, outside of the femur, and they basically tie that ligament to those buttons or screws. And again, you just now have a new ACL. It just comes from a different area, but those grafts, because we have to harvest them, take them from other parts of our body, that can sometimes lead to other issues. So with the bone patellar bone graft, obviously we've just taken a piece of your quadriceps tendon or quadriceps ligament. So now that is now another injured area. If we take it from your hamstring, now that part of your body now has an injury as well. So it's not just your ACL that we have to rehab. It's that plus wherever they've taken your new ACL or that graft.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this kind of once you have this surgery, now we start your clock, right?
Yep.
This starts the clock of recovery timeline, which is typically 10 to 12 months.
Yep.
Now, with modern science and advancements, this has really improved. It used to be a career ender.
Yep.
Now, they say 9 to 12. Now, 9 for me is a little bit early. There's a
Pushing
lot
it.
of research out there that shows anything before 9, there's a significant increase in re-injury risk, almost as much as 7 times.
Yep.
So definitely not before 9. If anybody tells you that, they're crazy.
Mhm.
Don't. That's not a good idea, right?
Yeah.
They're just not going to be ready.
Yes.
So 10 to 12 is typically the recovery timeline there. And he's got a clean ACL tear, so that's something that we should mention. What that means is it's just the ACL that is really that injury. A lot of times the LCL and the medial meniscus are kind of that unhappy triad. They're usually injured in combination with each
Yep.
other, but anytime that they have any other ligaments involved, any other structures, that's just going to extend out your recovery timeline and kind of lower the expectations for the following season there. So all right, I think we've kind of laid some pretty good groundwork. Why don't we get to the specifics of Stefon Diggs? And while you're pulling up the video, so he got injured against
Yep.
the Colts. I believe it is week 8 on October 27th of last year, 2024. And let me know when you're ready to go ahead and
We're ready to
pull.
roll.
Ready to roll? All right, let's get this one on the screen here.
So we have Stefon Diggs there in the blue.
Let me go ahead
Up,
and get it.
up.
Let me get a big screen here.
Okay. So yeah, as he's pulling this up, we got Stefon Diggs there in the navy blue going against the Colts in the white.
So we're looking at the right leg here. Right there.
Right
Boom.
there. Yeah.
Boom. So yeah, why don't we talk mechanism of injury,
Sure.
as we're kind of watching this on a little bit of a loop there. What are the typical mechanism? How does this happen?
Yeah, so there's a variety of different ways, and a lot of times we think of them as either non-contact or contact injuries. A lot of times, in this case, I would probably consider that non-contact. He wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily getting taken to the ground. He wasn't being tackled. He wasn't being
Someone
blocked
hit his
into.
knee.
Exactly. So he was just running down the field. He planted that foot, tried to cut, most likely back in towards the field. And when that happens, can we pull up the picture, the first picture that we had?
Yes. Let me go
Let's do
ahead.
that. But usually, as somebody's either trying to cut and turn back in towards the field, sometimes that lower part of the leg, sort of kind of like in this picture, wants to continue to drift away, where the femur starts to go back the direction that we want it to, and it kind of creates this rotation of the knee. And that those ACLs, they like forward backwards movement, they don't like rotation a whole lot. So when that happens, pop, there it goes. Other ways that this happens, sometimes if we hyperextend the knee, maybe we're coming down from a jump and all of a sudden we don't necessarily have a bent knee, or we don't have a completely straight knee, it actually hyperextends. Um, that can tear it as well. But a lot of times during contact injuries, this is kind of what Sebastian was talking about earlier. If we get a blow to really any part of the knee, it has a chance to, but especially the outside part of the knee, really forcing it in towards the center of the body, can really lead to either just an ACL tear, that medial meniscus tear, plus the MCL, like you said, with a terrible triad.
Yeah, no, exactly. So coming back to Diggs, so he tore his ACL 27th of October. That gives him 10 months and 1 week until week 1 of the next season for recovery time, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
he's just on the front end of that 10 to 12 month recovery timeline. Okay, so let's talk, other factors. What are some factors that you would say are going to affect this rehab? Because not every,
Sure.
injuries person's made the same.
Yep.
There's a couple different factors we want to look for as far as predicting success for that person to be able to come back. So, what are
Yeah,
some that you're
and
thinking
and
of here?
you've kind of already touched on like the recovery timeline piece, right? With
Hmm.
with our typical return to sport being that 10 to 12 months, like he's right on the edge of that, with the first week coming at, that 10-month 1 week mark. But I'll touch on something else, and then I'll let you hammer one or two of these home as well. But like position wise is huge. Like obviously Stefon Diggs is one of the best wide receivers in the league. As a wide receiver, we have to be explosive, we have to be able to cut, we have to be able to sprint, we have to be able to jump. All of those things are putting a lot of stress on that ACL. So from an explosiveness standpoint, how is he going to respond in that first 10 to 12 months, is really going to tell us a lot, right? When he
Yep.
finally gets on the field, whenever that is, whether it is week 1 or maybe he does miss 2 or 3 weeks there, time will tell. But usually those first couple weeks we'll know a lot in terms of how his rehab actually went.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so we've got recovery time, right? Obviously, the more time, the better. He's
Yep,
he's in that 10-month range for week 1, so he does kind of fit. We'd love for more time, the better, but
for sure.
he still kind of fits that position demands, like you talked about. Wide receiver, one of the highest. Wide receivers, running backs, they especially lateral mobility is one of the
Hmm.
last things that comes back with these type of injuries. So that kind of lends to some of that. They can say research says it can almost take up to 2 years for normal movement to come back. Now,
Yep,
normal is, how they were moving back then. It's not that
yep.
they can't do anything, but it's
And
not going to be the same.
And with that, it's also like a mental confidence thing, because like when this first
Oh,
happens,
absolutely.
we're retraining these guys how to walk normally again. It's not just, hey, you put an ACL in there and they're ready to go. They just got to get stronger or whatnot. It's a whole process getting these guys back on their feet. A lot of times they're either non-weight bearing, they're strapped up into some sort of a brace where they can't move their knee for a couple of weeks. Like this is more than just, hey, we got to get things stronger and put back together.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, just think about it. The last time he stepped on the field for a game, his knee blew out. Like, there's a trust factor there. And we
Yep.
see it all the time in rehab. We call it apprehension, right? It's like everything's good, but there's that last mental hurdle. And that
Yep.
does take a lot. Now, look, a lot of they're professional athletes. A lot of these guys have such high mental acuity and they're locked in. They can get through it.
Oh yeah.
But
Yep.
you can hear many of these athletes talk about it. It's not going to feel exactly the same, especially that first couple weeks that he's back, right? It's going to
Yep.
take some time. So
Yep.
that is also as well. It's not just the physiological part, the physical part. It is that mental part. So that's a great piece you
Definitely.
bring up. All right, so let's talk about. Why don't we get into some similar cases here?
Yeah.
Or actually, before I go there, let's talk. You got some return to sport testing. Let's quickly talk through some of the things we're looking for. Some of the what's called the markers that we're looking to hit there. Why don't you quickly run through some of that?
Yeah, so as we're getting through rehab, we're really looking at hamstring and quad strength, the two muscles that are on both sides of the knee. So in order just to start running again, we want his, in this case, right leg, his right hamstring and right quad, because that's the injured side, to be at least 70% as strong as his non-injured leg before we even let him start to run. Continue to strengthen. We start to get back into a running program at 80% hamstring and quad strength. Then we're getting into that lateral agility. We're getting into plyometrics, jumping, cutting, those kind of things. And we're not letting this guy start to do true football drills and really get to like return to sport kind of things until it's at least 90%. Now, being his right leg, that might be his dominant leg. And in that case, a lot of times we actually want it to be a little bit stronger than 90% anyways, because usually your dominant leg does have a little bit of strength before injury to begin with. And then from a hopping standpoint, again, it's not just running, it's not just sprinting. We also have a lot of cutting and jumping, especially with wide receivers. So we'll also do hop testing, and we do 4 of them a lot of times. We'll do single hop testing, triple hop testing, crossover testing, and then a timed hop test. And again, we want at least 90% compared to his non-injured leg before we're allowing him to get back on the field, start practicing, and get back to playing football.
Yeah, no, great. Yeah, beautiful breakdown there. Look, this kind of lends to the piece we were talking about, that dynamic stability piece, right? That is really where the ACL comes into play, right? It's not just straight line running, it's the plyometrics, the hopping, the lateral agility, the things that make these athletes, especially these skilled position athletes,
Yep.
really make them special, right? That is what takes the longest to return. So there's a video going around right now of him in the weight room squatting. He's got his injured leg a little bit forward and whatever. So look, it's great. Like Nick Chubb, we talked about last year with his squatting video. It's awesome that they're back in the weight room, right? But just know the ACL, it's not like it's getting super worked when you're squatting. That's not really what its functions for. He's stationary, it's when you're moving, right? So
Yep.
when will we be excited? We'll be excited when we see him out on the field running. We'll be excited when we see some of that lateral movement, lateral cutting, right?
Yep.
That is when we start to get excited about them hitting their rehab markers. So
Yep.
yeah, just wanted to talk about that briefly. And then a couple more sections here. I want to talk about some similar cases in the
Yeah.
past, so we can kind of go from there. So one I'm going to talk about from last year, just his fellow teammate right now, wide receiver Kendrick Bourne. All right,
Mm-hmm.
so I tried to look for some similarities. Well, he tore his ACL on October 29th of 2023.
Pretty
So
close.
2 days before, Stefon Diggs did. So they had similar recovery windows as far as about 10 months and maybe a little bit over 10 months
Yep.
for recovery time. He did not start the year. He started the year on the pup. So he only played 12 games, 28 receptions, 305 yards, a receiving touchdown. He was 29 at the time. Stefon Diggs will be 31. He was in his eighth year in the league. Stefon Diggs will be in his 11th, right? So, look, Kendrick Bourne was never the caliber wide receiver that Stefon Diggs was. So we
Sure.
have to kind of, prorate this a little bit. But just to give you some expectations. Now, also, I want to talk about a guy who was maybe a little bit higher level. Chris Godwin in 2021, December of 19th of 2021,
Mm-hmm.
he tore his ACL. So, one, he was a little bit younger here. He was 26, but he had less recovery time. He got injured in December, so he was only really looking at 8 months, 9
8 months.
months, yeah, something like that. So he played 15 games, which is pretty damn impressive. He also
Definitely.
had, let me look at the stats. He had 104 receptions, 1,023 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
That's an
Pretty
incredible
damn good.
year for
Yeah.
15 games, regardless. But coming off an ACL tear, so we wanted to kind of show some, look, there's going to be a wide spectrum. You're always going to be here about the Adrian Peterson. Brees Hall had a hell of a year coming
Yep.
off a year one ACL. So there is a lot of factors that go into this. But look, he's going to be older than these guys, but he's got more recovery time than Godwin, and he was kind of at a similar level before, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think there is pros and cons to take away. So that being said, it's all been leading up to this. What are we doing with Stefon Diggs? So let's go ahead and pull this up, this graphic up here for our 2025 fantasy outlook on Stefon Diggs. Why don't you start us off, brother?
Yeah, so last year he was wide receiver 21. His ADP was around 43. when we were looking at PPR leagues. So right now, he's being listed anywhere from wide receiver 47 to 59. Now, could that be because of this ACL? Most likely. He's also switching teams, but he's going to be that number one guy. Last year, we had Nico Collins and Tank Dell down in Houston on top of Stefon Diggs. So I'm really interested to see where he ends up going once we start to see more drafts, closer to the season.
Yeah.
But right now, as you can kind of see down at the bottom, like the first 6-7 rounds, I'm probably not touching Stefon Diggs. I'm filling out the rest of my roster. I'm trying to get starter guys that I know can be in my starting lineup weeks 1, week 2, week 3, because Stefon Diggs might come back and he may start week 1. I don't
Yep.
know if he's going to necessarily be on a snap count. I don't necessarily know if he's going to fully trust that knee those first 3 or 4 weeks of the season.
Yep.
Now, come rounds 8 to 10, if we're thinking wide receiver 47, like that's where that's probably going to fall. Rounds 8, 9. I'm definitely going to start considering taking Tank Dell again, depending on how my fantasy lineup is looking. If he gets past round 10, though, I'm snatching Stefon Diggs up right now.
Yeah.
And I
No.
think that's where, you probably have a couple of extra guys on your bench already at that point. And, he's worth the risk. He's that caliber of player, assuming that his knee is rehabbed appropriately and he's ready to go.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. As a quick summation for me, Stephon Diggs right now, he's got some good things going for him. He's got 10 months of recovery time. He's on a team where he's going to have a lot of opportunity. I like the quarterback situation with
Yeah.
Drake Maye. He is going to be expected to he's going to get the targets of a wide receiver 1.
Yep.
Now, if you draft him, you do have to have the expectation of for about the first month of the season, I would not be super comfortable starting him, right? Getting back. It's not until he gets kind of to that 11-month mark, has his kind of feet under him, that I really am going to feel confident. But like Derek said, anything in the first 7 rounds, I'm not touching him. 8th and 10th round, I'm considering him. If he's still there in the 10th round or above because people are nervous about the ACL and the new situation, absolutely smash draft Stefon Diggs. All right, brother. That was a in-depth look at Stefon Diggs. Look, folks, this was the first of the NFL injury deep dive series we are going to be doing. So if you got feedback for us, we would love to let us know. So drop a comment, reach out to us. But first things first, over on IDP Plus, make sure you guys check out right now with promo code IDP2025. You can get 50% off all your subscriptions there. Also, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications for this YouTube page. We're going to be doing a ton of these. We're going to have a ton of NFL offseason content just for you guys, for the true football fans. Again, so subscribe, turn the notifications on, and reach out to us with any feedback you have on this series.
If you have a guy that you're automatically drafting in your fantasy lineup, or if you guys have, favorite players on whatever team you like, throw those in the comments too, especially if they have injuries. We can break some of your favorite players down as well.
Absolutely. And the last thing I will say, what best thing about the offseason, the Fantasy Football Expo. Make sure you get your tickets over at fantasyfootballexpo.com. All right, brother, you got anything for the people before we get on out of here?
I don't think so.
All right. From Professor Locks and the DJ Locks at a IDP Plus, we are out of here.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.